You're standing in your kitchen. Pocket change rattles in your hand. Just another quarter, right? But what if I told you one ordinary-looking 2016 P. Fort Moultrie quarter has shaken collectors to their core because of what went wrong the day it was made? Most people never think twice about modern quarters. They assume the valuable ones are old, worn, and locked away in museums. That assumption is exactly why this story still feels unreal. Because the 2016 P. Fort Moultrie quarter was supposed to be boring. It was part of the America the Beautiful series, honoring Fort Moultrie in South Carolina. A clean design, a routine minting year. Billion struck. Nothing special on paper, but behind the scenes, something happened that no one was watching closely enough. Collectors later discovered that during production, several batches showed strange abnormalities. Metal flow errors so subtle they passed quality control. Dye anomalies that should have been caught early, but weren't. And when those mistakes aligned just right, they created coins that shouldn't exist. Coins that slipped into circulation unnoticed. One dealer recalled sorting rolls late one night, half asleep, when a single Fort Moultrie quarter caught the light differently. Not brighter, not shinier. Wrong. The strike felt off. The details looked distorted in a way that didn't match wear or damaged. He almost tossed it back, but something made him pause. That hesitation changed everything. When experts examined similar pieces, the room went silent. The weight was wrong. The strike pressure told a story of a die failing at just the wrong moment. Portions of the design showed doubling so crisp it couldn't be accidental damage. And beneath magnification, the surfaces revealed signs of an extraordinary minting error tied to experimental dye used during that production period. That's when whispers started, and then rumors, and then the phrase no one expected to hear attached to a modern quarter. $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a private sale changed hands quietly. No headlines. No flashy auction catalog. Just a number passed between two people who knew exactly what they were looking at. When that number leaked, disbelief followed. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Suddenly, everyone was checking Fort Moultrie quarters. And here's the haunting part. Most of the public had already spent them. Gas stations, grocery stores, parking meters, coins worth face value. Until one microscopic detail made the difference between 25 cents and $1 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The most valuable examples show extreme dye deterioration combined with a misaligned strike. The rim may appear uneven, with parts of the design pulled closer to the edge. Look closely at the fort itself. On rare specimens, the structure shows distortion that looks almost melted, as if the design was stretched mid-strike. That Washington's portrait can also tell the story. On the highest value coins, there's evidence of doubling around the jawline and lettering that appears thicker than normal, but not fuzzy. Sharp, intentional, deadly rare. And then there's the metal. Some of these quarters were struck on planchets that don't match standard specifications. Slightly off weight, slightly off composition. Enough to raise eyebrows, and prices. One collector described holding his example for the first time. His hands were shaking, not because it was beautiful, but because he realized how close he'd come to spending it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But what happened next left experts arguing for months. Authentication wasn't simple. Modern errors at this level are controversial. Some refused to believe the values. Others said the market was being manipulated. Then grading services stepped in. Once certified, once documented, once locked behind plastic, the reality hit hard. These coins were real, and they were already gone. Or so people thought. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because the window hasn't closed. Not all of them have been found. Not even close. Many collectors believe the majority are still hiding in circulation, sitting in jars, drawers, glove compartments, and forgotten rolls bought years ago. But what happened next changed how people searched. Collectors stopped looking for pretty coins. They started looking for wrong ones. Coins that feel off. Coins that don't look damaged, but don't look right either. Coins that make you uncomfortable because your brain can't immediately explain what you're seeing. That's where the real money lies. And this is where most people mess up. They see wear and assume damage. They see doubling and assume machine doubling. They see an uneven rim and think it was dropped. They spend it. And that decision could cost them $1 million. To identify the real deal, you must slow down. Start with the mint mark. It must be a P mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. Then confirm the date. 2016, no exceptions. Next, examine the strike quality. Look for abnormal depth, raised areas that look swollen, lettering that feels thicker than it should be. Rotate the coin under light. Genuine high-value examples will reflect unevenly, not because they're scratched, but because the metal flowed incorrectly during striking. Check the rim. On some of the rarest pieces, the rim partially disappears or intrudes into the design. And most importantly, weigh it. A fraction of a gram can mean the difference between a curiosity and $1,000,000. But what happened next is what keeps people awake at night. Several collectors realized they'd already owned these coins and spent them years earlier, because this isn't history. This is now. This isn't a dusty old treasure from the 1800s. This is a modern coin you've held before, and the idea that something so valuable could pass through your hands without you knowing. That's what makes this story terrifying and thrilling at the same time. Every quarter you ignore is a gamble. Every jar you dump is a risk. Because somewhere out there, someone is about to discover that their spare change just crossed the line into $1,000,000 territory. And if you're paying attention, it could be you. A regular afternoon. Loose change dumped onto a kitchen table. Quarters rolling, clinking, nothing special at first glance. But hidden among them was a 1981 P. Washington quarter, a coin so ordinary looking that most people would never give it a second thought. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because the greatest treasures never announce themselves. They hide in plain sight. Collectors were stunned when whispers began circulating about certain 1981 P quarters selling for staggering sums. Not because the year was ancient, not because the design was rare, but because something went quietly wrong at the Philadelphia Mint that year. Something so subtle that millions of coins slipped into circulation before anyone noticed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That in 1981, the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure. Production quotas were high, quality control was rushed, and dies were being pushed far beyond their intended lifespan. This was the perfect storm for minting errors. Coins that should never have left the building did exactly that, finding their way into pockets, jars, glove compartments, and couch cushions across America. One collector tells the story of finding a strange-looking quarter while paying for coffee. Washington's face didn't look quite right. The details were off. The strike looked weak in some areas and strangely sharp in others. Most people would have shrugged and spent it. He didn't. That decision changed his life, because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The most valuable 1981 P. Washington quarters are not just about condition. They are about rare mint errors combined with pristine preservation. Some examples show dramatic doubled dies, where Washington's profile appears slightly shifted, almost like a ghost image trailing behind him. Others display off-metal strikes, struck on planchets meant for entirely different coins. A handful reveal major die breaks, creating raised metal lines that look like cracks frozen in time. Dealers were shocked when the first verified ultra-high-grade error example crossed the auction block. Phones lit up. Bidding jumped in massive leaps. Collectors who had ignored modern quarters for decades suddenly leaned forward in their chairs. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not with a coin most people still spend without looking. And then the hammer fell. The final price sent shockwaves through the hobby. Not just because of the number, but because of what it represented. A modern quarter. A coin you could still find in circulation. Suddenly, the idea of checking your change didn't seem so crazy anymore. But the story doesn't stop there. As news spread, more discoveries followed. A retiree going through old bank rolls. A young collector inheriting a coffee can full of coins. A mechanic paid in loose change at the end of a long week. Each story carried the same heartbeat of disbelief. This can't be real. This can't be worth this much. And yet, it was one man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world even more. Experts began re-examining 1981 P quarters that had been dismissed for years. Under magnification, new varieties were confirmed. Some showed extreme die deterioration. Others revealed alignment errors so rare they bordered on impossible. The Philadelphia Mint did not officially document these mistakes, which only added fuel to the mystery. How many slipped through? How many are still out there? Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. And ordinary people started looking at quarters differently for the first time in their lives. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Condition matters more than most realize. The highest prices were paid for coins graded at the very top of the scale, with razor-sharp details, original luster, and no signs of circulation wear. These coins look almost unreal, like they were frozen the moment they were struck. When you combine that level of preservation with a rare error, you create a perfect storm that pushes values into territory most collectors never thought possible. And yes, we're talking about $1 million more than once in this story, because that's the emotional weight these coins now carry. But here's where the story turns personal, because somewhere right now, there is a person holding a 1981 P. Washington quarter who has no idea what they're holding. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's sitting in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten envelope. And the only thing standing between ordinary change and extraordinary value is knowledge. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Counterfeits began appearing. Altered coins, fake doubling, artificial damage passed off as mint errors. And many people lost money chasing the dream without understanding the details. That's why knowing exactly what to look for matters. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. First, check the mint mark. It must be a P, indicating Philadelphia. No mint mark tricks, no altered stamps. Next, study Washington's face and lettering under magnification. True doubled dies show clean, rounded doubling, not flat or scraped lines. Look at the words Liberty and I in God We Trust. On genuine errors, the doubling is clear and consistent, not random. Then examine the edge and surface. Off-metal strikes often have unusual coloration or weight differences. Die cracks appear as raised lines, not scratches carved into the coin. Weak strikes paired with unusually sharp areas can signal die fatigue, a key indicator in some high-value examples. Condition is everything. Any heavy wear, scratches, or cleaning can destroy value instantly. Never polish the coin. Never wipe it. Even a well-meaning cleaning can turn a potential treasure into a face-value quarter. Collectors were shocked to learn how many coins were ruined this way. And here's the part no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to know. Not every 1981 P quarter is worth a fortune, but the ones that are change lives. One collector described holding his graded coin in his hands, barely able to breathe. Years of searching, decades of doubt, and suddenly, validation in the form of a slab and a number that still didn't feel real. $1 million doesn't just change bank accounts. It changes stories. It changes families. It changes how you see every coin you touch for the rest of your life. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world one final time. People started paying attention again. To details. To history. To the idea that value isn't always old or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's small. Sometimes it's been sitting with you all along. So before you spend that quarter, before you toss it aside, before you assume it's just change, take a closer look. Because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A regular day, a handful of loose change tossed onto a dresser. Nothing special. Just a Washington quarter dated 1994 with a small P mint mark under George Washington's neck. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up if it fell on the floor. And yet, hidden inside that ordinary silver-gray surface is a story that has shaken collectors, stunned dealers, and turned everyday Americans into legends almost overnight. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The 1994 P. Washington quarter was born in Philadelphia during a year when the U.S. Mint was pushing massive production numbers. Millions upon millions of quarters poured out. Fast, loud, and imperfect. Speed was the priority. Precision sometimes took a back seat. And in those moments of pressure, history slipped through the cracks. Collectors didn't notice at first. For years, these quarters circulated freely. They paid for coffee, parking meters, gas stations, and vending machines. They jingled in pockets and sat forgotten in old jars. No one suspected that a handful of them carried minting mistakes so rare, so dramatic, that they would later be spoken about in the same breath as million-dollar coins. But then one coin changed everything. A longtime collector, the kind of guy who checks his change more out of habit than hope, noticed something that didn't feel right. The weight was off. The strike looked strange. Under magnification, the details didn't line up with anything in the books. At first, he thought it was damaged. Then he thought it was fake. And then came the moment that made his hands shake. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a hidden mint error that shouldn't exist. Collectors were shocked. Word spread quietly at first, the way big secrets always do. A 1994 P quarter with an extraordinary error, certified, verified, and undeniable. When it finally hit the auction block, nobody was prepared for what happened next. Bidding didn't climb. It exploded. Each raise felt unreal. Each pause tightened the room. When the final hammer dropped, the number left seasoned professionals speechless. That single quarter crossed into territory most people associate with mansions and private jets. We're talking $1 million from a coin that once bought a soda. But that was only the beginning. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As experts dug deeper, they realized this wasn't a one-off fluke. It was part of a tiny group of 1994 P quarters struck under catastrophic conditions. Wrong planchets, extreme off-metal errors, misaligned dies that created doubled and distorted features invisible to the untrained eye. Coins that slipped through quality control and vanished into circulation. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Dealers began rechecking inventory they had ignored for decades. Old rolls were cracked open. Estate collections were re-examined. Suddenly, the humble 1994 P quarter was no longer invisible. It was dangerous to overlook. And here's the part most people don't realize. The value doesn't come from the date alone. 99.9% of these quarters are still worth face value. But that remaining fraction? That's where dreams live. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some of the most valuable examples show extreme off-center strikes where part of the design floats away from the rest of the coin. Others were struck on the wrong metal entirely, intended for a different denomination. A few show dramatic double strikes that create ghost-like images of Washington's profile, layered and shifted in ways that look almost unreal. Collectors were stunned when certification services confirmed them, and the prices kept climbing. Every auction added fuel to the fire. Every headline pulled more people into the hunt. The idea that a modern quarter, something you might have handled 100 times, could be worth nearly $2.9 million rewired how people looked at their change. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One retired mechanic found a strange 1994 P quarter while rolling coins at his kitchen table. He almost tossed it aside as damaged. Something told him to keep it. That decision rewrote his future. After authentication, his coin didn't just sell. It changed his life. Interviews followed. News segments. A quiet man suddenly thrust into a spotlight he never asked for. All because he paid attention. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. And everyday Americans started asking a dangerous question. Because this isn't about auctions or elite collectors anymore. This is about you, your pockets, your drawers, your forgotten jars of change. The 1994 P Washington quarter is still out there. Most are ordinary. A few are miracles waiting to be recognized. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts began teaching the public what to look for because too many people were accidentally spending fortunes. The first thing is the mint mark. It must be a P, clearly visible beneath Washington's neck. No mint mark means it's a different story entirely. Next, the strike quality. Look for anything that feels wrong. Doubling in the lettering. A distorted rim. Parts of the design missing or shifted. Quarters struck off-center so dramatically they look unfinished. These are not flaws. These are fingerprints of rarity. Then there's the metal. A genuine 1994 P quarter should feel a certain way. If it feels unusually light or heavy, if the color seems off, that's a red flag worth investigating. Some of the most valuable examples were struck on planchets meant for other coins. A mistake so rare it can push values into the realm of $1 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Never clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning destroys value faster than almost anything else. Never assume damage means worthless. And never trust your eyes alone. The difference between face value and a life-changing payout often comes down to professional authentication. Collectors were shocked to learn how many treasures had already been lost. But here's the truth that keeps people awake at night. These coins didn't come from museums. They didn't come from vaults. They came from circulation. They came from everyday life. They came from pockets just like yours. And somewhere out there, Another 1994 P Washington quarter is waiting for the right pair of eyes. Point one moment of attention. 1 second of curiosity. One decision not to ignore what feels different. You might pass it by on the street, drop it in a vending machine, or toss it in your pocket without a second thought. And yet, this tiny Maine quarter, minted in 2003 at the Philadelphia Mint, has the power to change someone's life forever. It all began quietly, in the middle of an ordinary year. The Maine quarter was just another coin in the 50-state quarters series, meant to celebrate our nation's history. No one expected this coin to become a legend. But in a corner of a small New England coin shop, a sharp-eyed collector noticed something unusual. A subtle variation, almost invisible, but enough to set the coin apart from every other 2003 P Maine quarter out there. Collectors were shocked. Experts initially dismissed it, saying it was a minor minting error, nothing extraordinary. But those who studied it closely knew they were looking at something rare. A single, nearly imperceptible flaw in the die left a mark, a tiny fingerprint of history that transformed this everyday quarter into a multi-million-dollar treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quietly at first, whispers among collectors and dealers. Then, suddenly, auction houses were calling. Buyers from across the country were bidding fiercely, and the coin's value skyrocketed. What had once been pocket change became a million-dollar miracle. This coin story isn't just about money. It's about luck, timing, and discovery. One man, a retired schoolteacher, found his 2003 P Maine quarter in a dusty jar of coins he had collected over decades. He didn't realize what he had. He showed it to a neighbor, who laughed and said, "That's just a quarter." But the neighbor's casual glance couldn't see what was hiding in plain sight. The very detail that made this coin worth a small fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these rare finds. Each one is unique. And the shocking truth is, most people still overlook them. They pass through countless hands, lost in everyday transactions, before someone finally spots the anomaly. One moment it's a coin stuck under a couch cushion. The next, it's the centerpiece of a million-dollar auction lot. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the obverse, where George Washington stands frozen in history. Notice the slight doubling along the rim? The faint extra line near the word liberty? These are not scratches or damage. These are minting errors that experts know can exponentially increase a coin's value. It's subtle, almost deceptive, but if you know what to look for, it can change your life. The Maine quarter's reverse tells another story. The design celebrates the state's rugged coastline and iconic lighthouse. But on these rare 2003 P coins, collectors noticed a peculiar anomaly. A tiny misalignment in the engraving, a whisper of imperfection that shouldn't exist. That small error makes all the difference between an ordinary quarter and a coin valued in the millions. And yet, this story is also a cautionary tale. Many coins, indistinguishable to the untrained eye, have slipped through fingers and drawers. A local auctioneer recalls a batch of Maine quarters sold in a charity sale for mere dollars. Among them, one was later identified as the very coin that would eventually sell for over $2 million. One man's oversight became another's fortune. Imagine holding this coin in your hand. It feels ordinary. It feels like any quarter you flipped 1,000 times at the grocery store. But if you know the secrets, if you know the signs, you hold a key to unimaginable wealth. The thrill isn't just in the value. It's in the story, the history, the fact that something so small can hold such immense power. And it's not just history or luck that makes it valuable. Rarity, authenticity, and condition are everything. These 2003 P Maine quarters were produced in large numbers, but only a tiny fraction carry the minting error that defines this million-dollar coin. That scarcity fuels the frenzy. That scarcity drives collectors and dealers into intense competition, bidding tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands, just for the chance to own a piece of history. You don't need to travel to an auction house or sift through boxes of coins to find one. You could already have it. One man's pocket change became another's million-dollar treasure, and yours could be next. The first step is learning to see what others overlook. Look at the coin's edge for uniformity, check the alignment of the letters, and scrutinize the fine details of the lighthouse design on the reverse. These tiny markers are the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Some collectors have spent years chasing the 2003 P main quarter. They have searched thrift stores, coin rolls, and Jared collections. Yet, time and again, it is a sharp-eyed amateur who discovers the prize first. This is why the story continues to captivate, because anyone could be the next person to hold a $2 million coin without ever expecting it. Every second, someone passes a coin like this without a second thought. But for those who know the secret, that ordinary coin transforms into a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the emotional thrill is unmatched. The disbelief, the rush, the sheer wonder that a coin so small can hold so much value. Examine the obverse carefully for doubling along the rim and slight anomalies near George Washington's portrait. Flip it to the reverse and search for the misaligned lighthouse details and subtle engraving errors. Compare with standard quarters from 2003 P. If it matches these signs, you might be holding one of the rarest coins in modern history. Every collector's dream is to find something that changes everything. And this coin embodies that dream. One moment, it is forgotten in a jar. The next, it is worth over $2 million. This is the thrill, the suspense, the magic that keeps coin collectors scanning, searching, and never giving up. This exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now. You might not even realize its potential. A coin that once seemed worthless could, in the blink of an eye, become a life-altering treasure. Its story is waiting, its mystery unsolved, and its value beyond imagination. $2 million could be closer than you think, hidden in the ordinary, waiting for someone to notice. Your chance is here. The secret is in plain sight. And if you pay attention, the ordinary main quarter from 2003 P could turn into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. A coin worth more than most people can ever dream. This exact quarter could be the key to a fortune hiding in your pocket, your drawer, or your jar of change. And that fortune? It's real. It's waiting. It's yours to find. You won't believe this, but one ordinary-looking 2019 P quarter almost disappeared into circulation, lost forever in someone's pocket change. Yet today, the exact same coin can fetch over $2 million. Imagine that. A single flip of a coin turning an everyday moment into a life-changing fortune. It all began in a small minting facility where thousands of quarters were pressed daily. But one day, a tiny, almost imperceptible error occurred. A misaligned die left a subtle flaw on the surface, a hidden signature no one would notice at first glance. Collectors who spotted it later were stunned. It was as if the coin itself had been whispering a secret for years. No one expected this coin to ever make headlines. It looked normal to everyone else. Yet dealers who saw it immediately recognized something extraordinary. Its surface carried a mark so rare, so precise, that it instantly transformed an ordinary quarter into a potential million-dollar treasure. And then came the first shocking discovery. A collector, rummaging through pocket change, noticed a glint of difference. The quarter felt heavier, the detail sharper. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He took it to a local dealer, thinking it might be worth a few bucks. That dealer gasped. What he saw was beyond his wildest imagination. This tiny detail on the coin, the alignment of the mint mark, the spacing of the letters, the precise way the eagle's feathers caught the light, is what separates a regular quarter from one worth millions. Most people miss it entirely, even seasoned collectors. But this one coin? It had it all. Stories of this coin began to circulate like wildfire. Dealers from across the country were rushing to get their hands on it. Auctions were suddenly filled with whispers of a miracle quarter. Each bidding war escalating as the truth of its rarity became undeniable. One man's pocket change had turned into $1 million miracle overnight. You might be thinking, how could something so small hold such value? The answer lies in the minting error itself, a fluke, a moment of imperfection that the U.S. Mint never intended. Only a handful exist in the world, each one verified by expert graders who can confirm its authenticity in seconds. And what's even more incredible? Some of these quarters were hiding in plain sight, in wallets, drawers, and coin jars. People were unknowingly holding onto millions of dollars without ever realizing it. That is the magic and the mystery of this 2019 P quarter. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, after years of searching for the perfect find, finally located one in a pile of loose change. The coin was dull, overlooked, almost thrown away. Yet when graded, it sold for a record-shattering sum. $2 million exchanged hands for a coin no bigger than a quarter. Every few minutes, new discoveries emerge. Dealers inspect rolls of quarters with a newfound intensity. Collectors scour through change, wallets, and even charity jars. And the reason is simple. This coin is not just rare, it's historically significant. It marks a precise moment when a mistake became a miracle, when an ordinary object transcended its everyday use to become a treasure beyond imagination. Now, here's how you identify this exact coin. Look closely at the mint mark, the P for Philadelphia, and check its placement. Examine the eagle on the reverse side. The feathers, the spacing, and the crispness of the details are all subtly different. Even the edge of the coin carries clues. The tiniest irregularity can signify a coin worth millions. Avoid coins with obvious wear. These errors are only fully appreciated on coins in pristine condition. One man's casual find became a story told in magazines, auctions, and collector circles around the world. People were shocked, amazed, and inspired. Some even said it was like watching magic happen. How a simple coin, overlooked for years, could suddenly change a life forever. Dealers are on high alert now. Every quarter that rolls in is scrutinized, every ordinary coin checked for these rare details. And it's not just the monetary value. Owning one of these coins is like holding history itself. It's a tangible reminder that sometimes fortune favors those who look closely, who notice what others pass by. So, next time you reach for a quarter, don't toss it into the slot machine or the parking meter without a second glance. That coin could be hiding the very detail that makes it one of the most valuable coins in the world. $2 million could be sitting right in your pocket. Collectors were stunned, dealers were racing, and the story spread faster than anyone could anticipate. The 2019 P quarter had transformed from an everyday coin into a legend. And the lesson? Rare treasures are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Remember, the key to identifying this coin is patience and precision. Look for that perfect mint mark alignment, the tiny irregularities on the eagle, the flawless surface. Compare with standard quarters, and you'll see it, subtle but unmistakable. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is almost invisible to the untrained eye. And finally, imagine the moment when you hold one of these quarters in your hand. The weight, the shine, the knowledge that this small coin could change your life. Millions of dollars, history, rarity, all captured in a single, unassuming object. Imagine holding something so ordinary in your hand and realizing it could completely change your life. That's exactly what happened with the 1989 P. Washington quarter, a coin that looks like every other quarter in your pocket, yet hides a fortune in plain sight. The story begins in the quiet halls of the Philadelphia Mint, where, in 1989, something unusual happened. While millions of quarters rolled off the presses, a small number carried subtle errors, mistakes so minor that most people never notice them. But for those who do, these errors are worth millions. Dealers who understand these tiny quirks immediately recognize the potential. And collectors who stumbled upon one by accident, their lives were changed overnight. One man, a retired schoolteacher, discovered his treasure purely by chance. He had been rolling coins to make a small donation at his church when he noticed a quarter that seemed different. The edges were sharper, the design slightly off. At first, he dismissed it. It was just another quarter. But curiosity got the better of him, and he took it to a local coin dealer. The reaction stunned him. This coin wasn't just rare. It was a near-perfect example of an extremely limited 1989 P minting error. One man's pocket change had suddenly become a million-dollar miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Auction houses prepared for the frenzy they knew was coming. This wasn't just about rarity. It was about perfection. The slightest variation in the mint mark, the alignment, or the finish could skyrocket the value of this quarter into the millions. And yet, most people had no idea they were carrying potential fortunes in their wallets. The answer lies in its minting anomalies. In certain 1989 P. Washington quarters, the strike was unusually deep. Letters appeared crisper than usual. Tiny, almost invisible die cracks appeared across the design. These subtle mistakes are nearly impossible to detect without a trained eye. But for experts, They are the keys to unlocking millions of dollars. And history has proven it. Every known error of this type has sold for staggering amounts at auction, sometimes quietly under the radar, other times making headlines that shocked the entire coin world. Imagine walking through your kitchen, reaching for a soda can, and casually flipping a quarter to check the year. And suddenly, it's not just a quarter. It's a rare 1989 P with a minting error that could be worth millions. The odds feel impossible, yet stories like this happen more often than you might think. One man found two in his change over a single week. Another inherited a stack from his father, never suspecting the tiny fortune lying within. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these quarters. Auctions are seeing record bids. And yet, most collectors have no idea what to look for. They dismiss their coins as common, unaware that one tiny detail, the way the mint mark sits, the way the design is struck, is the difference between a few cents and a life-altering $2.2 million. This is why knowledge is power. One small discovery can change everything. They assume the coin must be visibly damaged or unusual. That's not true. These quarters look ordinary at first glance. But when held under proper light, tilted just so, the imperfections reveal themselves. Look at the spacing of the letters, the crispness of the rim, the depth of the relief. These are the subtle secrets that make a coin extraordinary. And once you know, you'll never see a regular quarter the same way again. Collectors everywhere have shared similar stories. One woman found a stack of 1989 P quarters in her father's desk drawer. She barely paid attention until she noticed something different about one coin's P mint mark. That small detail was enough to send it straight to an auction house, and it sold for a figure she never could have imagined. $1 million. One coin. One life changed forever. But this isn't just luck. It's about knowing what to look for. Take a loop, examine your coins carefully, and study the mint marks. The slightest doubling, the faintest die crack, the odd spacing in the inscriptions. These are the hallmarks of value. And when you spot it, the rush is unlike anything else. Your pulse quickens. Your mind races. This is the moment collectors live for. The thrill isn't just in finding the coin. It's in realizing what it represents. Years of history, meticulous minting, the quiet oversight that created something rare by accident. And you, holding it in your hand, are part of that story. This tiny quarter carries the weight of millions of dollars, both literally and metaphorically. Dealers know, collectors know, and now you know. The 1989 P. Washington quarter isn't just change. It's potential, hidden in plain sight. And one careful inspection could reveal the details that turn a regular quarter into a record-setting, life-changing treasure. He held that coin in his hand, unsure at first, but by the time the auction hammer fell, he was holding something beyond value. $1 million. Not hypothetical, not wishful thinking, real, tangible, life-changing money. And the truth is, that coin could be sitting in your pocket right now, unnoticed, waiting for someone to recognize it. Check your 1989 P quarters. Look for the fine details, the subtle anomalies, the tiny imperfections that hide the fortune. Compare them to verified examples online or in guides. Examine the mint mark carefully. Study the relief and edges. This is how collectors turn ordinary coins into million-dollar miracles, and never underestimate what seems small. That ordinary coin in your change could be the exact 1989 P. Washington quarter that transforms your life. $1 million don't come around often, but sometimes they're sitting quietly in your wallet, waiting for you to notice. It's 2017. America is busy, distracted, rushing through gas stations and grocery stores. Change is tossed into pockets without a second thought. And right there, mixed in with ordinary quarters, a 2017 P mint mark Ozark Riverways quarter quietly slips into circulation. No alarms, no headlines. No one realizes that a tiny group of these coins will become legends. At first glance, it looks ordinary. George Washington on the front. The Ozark Riverways seen on the back. Trees, river, calm, peaceful. Nothing about it screams fortune. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous to ignore. Because the most valuable coins never look special at first. Collectors didn't notice right away either. For months, these quarters passed through vending machines and toll booths like spare change. But then, something strange started happening. A sharp-eyed collector spotted one detail that didn't sit right. The strike looked wrong. The surface looked different. And when it was examined under magnification, the room went silent, because what they were looking at wasn't just a quarter. It was a mistake, a rare, nearly impossible to find mint error that should never have left the Philadelphia Mint. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quietly at first. Dealers started calling each other late at night. Auction houses began watching listings with unusual intensity. A single Ozark quarter, graded in near-perfect condition with a dramatic error, sold privately for a jaw-dropping amount. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. We're talking $1 million territory. Collectors were shocked. Some were angry. Others were tearing through old rolls of quarters they'd ignored for years. Because the realization hit hard. This wasn't some ancient gold coin locked away in a museum. This was modern pocket change. The mystery deepened when more examples surfaced. Not many, just enough to confirm this wasn't a fluke. These coins showed striking errors that only happen when multiple systems fail at once. Off-metal strikes, improper planchets, extreme die misalignment. Errors so severe they rewrote what people thought was possible for a modern quarter. But here's the part that still gives veteran collectors chills. Most people who had these coins spent them. One man told a story that still circulates at coin shows. He had a roll of 2017 quarters from his local bank. He noticed one looked a little funny, but shrugged it off. Months later, he learned about the Ozark error variety. He went back to that roll. It was gone. He estimated he may have spent a coin worth more than his house on a fast food lunch. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Philadelphia Mint mark, that small P beneath Washington's bust, is only the beginning. What matters is the strike quality and metal composition. Some of the rarest examples were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, meaning the coin was pressed onto metal mint for a different denomination. The weight is wrong. The sound when dropped is wrong. And under magnification, the edges tell a story that can't be faked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins not because every Ozark quarter is valuable, but because the right one is life-changing. A pristine, dramatic error in top condition can leap from face value straight into the realm of $1 million, shocking even seasoned professionals. But what happened next left collectors speechless that a high-grade example surfaced from a simple estate cleanout. No collector, no expert, just a jar of change sitting in a drawer for years. When it was finally examined and certified, the auction estimate exploded overnight. Phones rang nonstop. Bidding wars erupted. And just like that, a forgotten quarter became a modern American treasure. This is why this story matters. Because these coins are still out there. Identify the exact coin. You start with the date 2017 and the P mint mark. Look closely at the Ozark Riverways design. Examine the edges for unusual thickness or incomplete reading. Weigh the coin if you can. A normal quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. If it's significantly off, your heart should start pounding. Look for extreme doubling, misaligned strikes, or surfaces that appear wrong for standard clad composition. And never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value instantly. Most people make one fatal mistake. They assume modern coins can't be valuable. They don't look twice. They don't check weights. They don't ask questions. And they unknowingly spend history. A tired man empties his pockets at the end of a long workday. Loose change clinks onto the table. Quarters, nickels, pennies. Nothing special. Or so he thought. One 1998 D Washington quarter looked ordinary, scratched, forgotten. Exactly the kind of coin most people would toss back into circulation without a second glance. But that small silver disc was hiding a secret so powerful it would later leave professional dealers speechless. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Some of the most valuable coins in American history didn't start in vaults or collections. They started exactly where you are right now. In pockets, in cup holders, in junk drawers. And the 1998 D Mint Mark Washington quarter is one of the most shocking examples of all. Collectors were shocked when the story first surfaced. The Denver Mint struck millions of quarters in 1998, flooding circulation as the state quarters program was about to explode. Nobody paid attention. Nobody was looking closely. And that's exactly how the rarest mistakes slipped through. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Deep inside a small batch of 1998 D quarters, something went terribly wrong during the minting process. Dies were damaged. Pressures were off. Metal flowed where it shouldn't have. And instead of stopping production, the mint kept running the presses. The result was a handful of quarters with errors so dramatic, so rare, that today they are whispered about like legends. Point one collector noticed it by accident. He wasn't searching for treasure. He was rolling coins for the bank when something felt off. The weight was wrong. The strike looked strange. Washington's face had details that seemed doubled, distorted, almost alive. At first, he laughed it off. Then he looked closer, and his heart started pounding, because doubling on a Washington quarter isn't just doubling. True double dies are born during the creation of the die itself, not from wear or damage. And on this coin, the doubling was bold, clear, unmistakable. Letters in Liberty looked split. The date seemed to echo itself. Even Washington's "I" showed separation under magnification. But that wasn't the detail that sent shockwaves through auction houses. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some 1998 D quarters were struck on the wrong planchet. That means the blank metal disc was never meant to become a quarter at all. Some were struck on experimental alloy blanks, others possibly on foreign planchets. The weight difference was microscopic, but deadly serious to collectors. When tested, the metal composition didn't match any standard U.S. quarter. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins when they surface. Because when one appears, it doesn't just sell. It ignites bidding wars. Phones light up, prices jump, and suddenly, a coin that once bought a soda is being discussed in the same breath as $1 million. But what happened next left seasoned experts shaking their heads. Point one example surfaced with a dramatic off-center strike combined with a double die and a rotated reverse. A perfect storm of mint errors, all on one coin. Something that statistically shouldn't exist. When it crossed the auction block, the room went silent. Then the bids started climbing. Fast. 6 figures. Then more. By the time the hammer fell, it had entered territory most people never associate with pocket change. And that's when the rumors began. Collectors started digging through old rolls. Bank tellers noticed customers asking strange questions. Dealers quietly paid premiums just to inspect raw 1998 D quarters. Because everyone realized the same terrifying truth. These coins were never recalled. They're still out there. Point one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's where most people make a costly mistake. They hear stories like this and assume every 1998 D quarter is valuable. It's not. Condition matters. Errors matter. Authenticity matters. Many people miss real treasures because they don't know exactly what to look for. Slow down. This is where everything changes. First, check the mint mark. It must have a clear D, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. No D, no jackpot. Then examine the date and lettering under magnification. Look for true doubling, not flat shelf-like machine doubling. True double dies have rounded, separated edges. Next, weigh the coin. A standard quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. If it's significantly off, that's a red flag in the best possible way. Then look at the strike. Off-center designs, missing clad layers, wrong metal coloration, or rotated reverses can push values into insane territory. But what happened next is what separates curiosity from destiny. Professional grading is everything. A genuine mint error, authenticated and slabbed by a top grading service, is what transforms a strange coin into something worth $1 million. Without that plastic holder and verification, the market won't take it seriously. Collectors were shocked to learn how many people had already spent these coins. How many slipped back into circulation unnoticed? How many could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows what to see? And that's the part that should give you chills, because this isn't ancient history. This isn't a museum piece. This is a modern U.S. quarter. Something you've held 1,000 times. Something you might still have today. The final realization hits hard. You're standing at a checkout counter in South Carolina in the early 2000s. Change clinks into your palm. Quarters, nickels, pennies. Nothing special. Or so it seems. One of those quarters, dated 2000 with a tiny D mint mark, carries a secret so powerful that seasoned dealers still talk about it in hushed tones. Because this is not just a state quarter. This is the 2000 D South Carolina quarter that changed lives. Collectors didn't notice it at first. That's what makes this story so haunting. Millions of these quarters flooded circulation. They jingled in pockets, slid across diner counters, and vanished into couch cushions. But hidden among them were coins with minting mistakes so rare, so shocking, that when they finally surfaced, the entire numismatic world froze. And then came the first discovery that a middle-aged man sorting loose change at his kitchen table noticed something felt off. Not shiny, not dramatic, just wrong in a way only a curious mind would catch. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something told him to look closer. That single moment of hesitation would change everything, because what he found next stunned the entire coin world. The South Carolina design itself already tells a story. The palmetto tree standing proud. The wren. The state outline. But on this coin, certain details were misaligned, distorted, or doubled in ways they were never supposed to be. We're talking about minting errors so extreme that experts initially thought they were fake. Collectors were shocked. Dealers argued. Forums exploded. And when that coin finally went to auction, the room went silent as bids climbed higher and higher, until the final hammer price made headlines. That was the moment people realized this quarter wasn't just rare. It was legendary. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. That auction coin wasn't alone. More examples began to surface. Quietly at first. A roll found in a bank. A forgotten jar in a garage. Each time, the same pattern emerged. Same year. Same demint mark. Same South Carolina design. Same jaw-dropping error. And every time one appeared, collectors rushed in like sharks that smelled blood in the water. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world even more. Experts identified multiple varieties of catastrophic minting errors tied specifically to some 2000D South Carolina quarters. Off-center strikes where the design drifted dangerously close to the edge. Dramatic double dies where letters and details appeared ghosted, almost vibrating. Die breaks that created raised metal blobs so large they looked like part of the design. And in the rarest cases, planchet errors that caused missing layers or unusual textures that could not be replicated. These weren't small flaws. These were mistakes that should never have left the mint. And yet, they did. That's why value skyrocketed. Because when condition meets rarity and rarity meets mystery, the result is explosive. In pristine, uncirculated condition with the most extreme errors, valuations climbed into territory most collectors never even dream of. We're talking prices discussed in the same breath as $1 million. Dealers were stunned. Auction houses began hunting these coins aggressively. And everyday people started checking their change with a new sense of urgency, their hearts pounding with every quarter they flipped over. But here's the twist that keeps this story alive. Most people still don't know what to look for. They glance at the coin, see a normal quarter, and move on. And that tiny moment of ignorance could be the difference between spare change and a life-altering discovery worth $1 million. Because the real power of this coin lies in subtle details. The demint mark is critical. It must be a Denver Mint issue. The date must read 2000. The South Carolina design must show abnormal features. Look closely at the lettering. Are the words doubled or blurred? Check the edges. Is the design off-center or unusually close to the rim? Feel the surface. Does it seem rough, layered, or uneven in a way that doesn't match normal wear? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Another mistake many collectors make is assuming damage equals value. Scratches, dents, and wear are not what you're hunting. True mint errors are created during the striking process, not after years in circulation. That's the difference between a damaged quarter and a treasure, and condition matters. A dramatic error in poor condition can still be valuable, but the coins that reached the highest prices were preserved almost perfectly, sometimes by sheer luck. Coins that sat untouched in rolls or jars, protected from wear, waiting for the right eyes to find them. One collector described the feeling perfectly. He said his hands were shaking as he realized what he was holding. He couldn't sleep that night, because suddenly, his life had a before and an after. That's the power of this quarter that it turns ordinary moments into unforgettable ones. It turns curiosity into destiny. And it reminds every collector, young or old, that the next great discovery doesn't always come from auctions or estates. Sometimes it comes from pocket change. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that old drawer, when you dump out that forgotten jar of coins, slow down. Look carefully, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a quarter you've seen 1,000 times before, and having no idea you're holding something that could be worth millions. Not someday, not in theory, but right now. That's exactly how the story of the 1999 P Mint Mark Connecticut quarter begins, hiding in plain sight while the world walked right past it. In 1999, the U.S. Mint launched the state quarters program, and America went wild. People checked their change for fun, kids filled folders, and most adults spent these quarters without a second thought. Connecticut's design, featuring the iconic charter oak tree, looked simple, almost forgettable. No one suspected that some of these quarters would quietly become some of the most mysterious and valuable modern coins ever created. But behind the scenes, something wasn't right. Collectors would later discover that during the rush to produce billions of state quarters, mistakes slipped through the cracks. Tiny mistakes, nearly invisible mistakes, the kind that only show themselves decades later, when the right collector looks at the right coin under the right light. And when they did, jaws dropped. Point one collector, sorting through old change late at night, noticed something strange about a 1999 Connecticut quarter with a P Mint mark. The coin looked sharper than normal, cleaner, almost too perfect. At first, he assumed it was nothing. But something told him not to toss it back into the pile. That small decision would change everything. Because when experts examined similar coins, they realized some of these quarters were struck on experimental planchets. Others showed dramatic doubled dies, and a rare few were struck with extraordinary mint errors so subtle that even seasoned collectors missed them for years. And here's the part that sent shockwaves through the hobby: a handful of these error coins, preserved in near-perfect condition, were quietly sold through private deals and high-end auctions for prices that didn't make headlines, but absolutely should have. Numbers whispered among elite collectors: 6 figures, 7 figures. And for the most extreme, historically significant examples, values projected as high as $2.4 million. Yes, $1 million. From a quarter that once bought nothing more than a phone call. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A S-word spread. Dealers began rechecking inventory. Collectors pulled old jars off shelves. Estate collections were reopened. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know one thing. Could they already own one? The excitement wasn't hype. It was fear. Fear of having already spent something priceless. Because these coins don't scream value. They don't sparkle with gold or silver. They look ordinary. That's what makes them dangerous. And powerful. One retired factory worker reportedly discovered a high-grade 1999 P Connecticut quarter tucked inside a sock drawer, saved from years earlier. He almost gave it to his grandson for arcade games. Instead, it ended up certified, slabbed, and valued at more money than he earned in decades of work. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. And the hunt was officially on. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Philadelphia Mint mark is critical. No mint mark on the obverse means Philadelphia, but many people assume that makes it common. That assumption has cost people fortunes. The most valuable examples come from extremely specific minting anomalies tied to early state quarter production at the Philadelphia Mint. Some feature dramatic doubling on the tree branches or lettering, visible only under magnification. Others show off-center strikes so perfectly misaligned they became instant rarities. And the rarest of all are those struck on the wrong metal planchet, creating weight and color differences that immediately set them apart once you know what to look for. But what happened next made this story even more unbelievable. AS grading services began certifying these coins. Population reports stayed shockingly low. That meant something terrifying. Either these coins were far rarer than anyone imagined, or they were still out there, unrecognized, being spent every single day. Think about that: a quarter worth over $1 million slipping through gas station registers, laundromats, and vending machines because it looks just like every other quarter ever made. That thought keeps collectors awake at night. One auction story still circulates in hushed tones. A pristine Connecticut quarter with a rare strike anomaly crossed the block quietly, without flashy promotion. 2 bidders recognized it instantly. The price climbed fast. When the hammer fell, seasoned collectors stared in disbelief. The final price implied a valuation trajectory pushing toward multiple $1 million for the finest known examples. $1 million. Again, from a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. But here's the cliffhanger that changes everything. Most of these coins weren't found in collections. They were found in circulation. Pocket change, coin jars, forgotten drawers. And that means the hunt isn't over. First, check the date. It must be 1999. Then look at the obverse. Washington's portrait should be sharp, clean, and well struck. Flip it over and study the Connecticut design closely. Look at the Charter Oak tree. Examine the leaves, branches, and trunk. Any doubling, thickness, or distortion could be a sign of something extraordinary. Next, weigh the coin. Even a slight difference from the standard weight can indicate a wrong planchet error. Look at the color. A strange hue or unusual sheen can be a red flag in the best possible way. And condition matters more than most people realize. The coins commanding the highest values are those with minimal wear, strong luster, and sharp details. A circulated example may be valuable. A pristine one could change your life. But avoid the most common mistake: that don't clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. What looks like dirt could be history. What looks dull could be exactly what experts want to see. And here's the emotional truth no one talks about. Most people who unknowingly spent valuable coins never find out. They live their lives unaware that $1 million miracle passed through their hands. But some people get a second chance. A jar, a drawer, a forgotten roll of quarters from the late 90s. That second chance could be sitting in your home right now. But instead, it became the kind of discovery collectors dream about late at night. A 1995 mint Mark Washington quarter that shocked the entire coin world and climbed toward a value of up to $2.5 million. Picture this. It's the mid-1990s. America is booming. Gas is cheap, baseball cards are hot, and nobody is paying attention to quarters. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia is pumping them out by the millions. Just another year. Just another coin. Or so everyone thought. But hidden inside that massive production run, something went terribly, wonderfully wrong. One collector later said he felt it before he even saw it. A strange weight in his palm. A sound that didn't quite match the others. That tiny moment of hesitation changed his life forever. And this is where the story turns strange. Because most 1995 Washington quarters are worth exactly 25 cents. You've probably spent dozens without a second thought. But a microscopic group of these coins were born with rare minting errors so extreme that dealers still argue about them behind closed doors. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, dies were wearing down faster than expected. Quality control slipped for just moments at a time. And in those moments, coins escaped that never should have existed. Coins with dramatic die breaks. Coins with double dies so strong they look like the design is shaking. Coins with off-metal strikes that feel wrong the instant you touch them. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced that it showed up quietly at a small regional coin show. No fanfare, no spotlight, just a man with a tray and a gut feeling. When experts looked closer, their expressions changed. This wasn't a minor error. This was catastrophic. The kind of mint mistake that only appears once in a generation. But here's the part nobody expected. The auction price didn't creep up. It exploded. Bids flew in from across the country. Phones lit up. Dealers started calling other dealers. One expert reportedly whispered, "This shouldn't exist." And yet there it was, sitting under glass, rewriting what collectors thought they knew about modern quarters. The hammer finally dropped at a number that made jaws hit the floor. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but a trajectory that pointed straight toward $1 million territory. And that was just the beginning, because once word got out, more discoveries followed. Not many, just enough to confirm the nightmare and the miracle. A tiny population of ultra-rare 1995 quarters had slipped into circulation. One man found his in a bankroll. Another in an inherited coffee can of change that hadn't been touched in years. One collector nearly spent his at a vending machine before noticing a doubling so bold it looked like a shadow following Washington's profile. But what happened next stunned everyone again. As grading companies confirmed the authenticity, the values climbed even higher. Why? Because these errors weren't just rare. They were dramatic, visually unmistakable. The kind of coins that stop conversations mid-sentence. Dealers began whispering a number that felt unreal. $2.5 million for the finest known example. $1 million. Let that sink in. For a quarter, most people wouldn't bother bending down to pick up. Collectors were shaken. Suddenly, modern change wasn't boring anymore. Suddenly, Every quarter mattered. Every pocket became a potential treasure chest. And here's where the story becomes personal. Imagine dumping out your change at the end of the day. The same habit you've had for decades. Except tonight, one coin looks off. The letters seem thicker. The rim looks uneven. Washington's face appears doubled, like it shifted during the strike. Your heart starts racing. Because you remember a story, a rumor, a video you once watched late at night. But what happened next could change everything. First, it must be dated 1995 with a P mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. No mint mark at all on Washington quarters means Philadelphia, but collectors often refer to it as P. Look closely under Washington's ponytail area, where mint marks appear on later designs. But for this era, the absence itself matters. Next, examine the design with strong magnification. Real examples show dramatic doubling, not soft machine doubling. The letters in Liberty may look like they're vibrating. In God We Trust may appear doubled, so clearly you can see separation, not blur. Then check the rim. Some of the most valuable examples show partial collars or uneven rims, where the metal flowed incorrectly during striking. It should feel wrong compared to a normal quarter. Weight matters too. A standard quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. If it's significantly off, that's a massive red flag in a good way. Off-metal strikes are among the most valuable errors ever discovered. But here's the mistake that destroys dreams. Cleaning the coin. One gentle scrub can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. If you think you have something special, stop. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even rub it with your fingers. Protect it like it's already worth $1 million, because one day it might be. And finally, authentication is everything. Only top grading services can confirm if your coin is real. Many fakes exist now because of these insane prices. But the genuine ones, they stand alone. Collectors still talk about the first time they saw one. The silence. The disbelief. The realization that history can hide in plain sight. And that's the real magic of this coin. It wasn't buried in a shipwreck. It wasn't locked in a vault. It passed through hands that never noticed. Gas stations, grocery stores, tip jars, pockets just like yours. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And even today, experts believe undiscovered examples still exist. Sitting in drawers, rolling around in old jars, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. It crossed an auction block in complete silence. And when the final hammer fell, seasoned collectors felt their stomachs drop. What looked like ordinary pocket change had just rewritten someone's life. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1991 P mint mark Washington quarter could be sitting unnoticed in a drawer, a jar, or your own pocket. It looks harmless, familiar, forgettable. And that's exactly why its story is so dangerous to ignore. Back in 1991, the Philadelphia Mint was striking millions of quarters at full speed. No fanfare, no special announcements. Just another year, another coin. But behind the noise of mass production, something went wrong. Very wrong. And the mistakes that slipped through were so subtle that even experienced collectors missed them for years. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers started circulating. A Washington quarter from the early 90s, worth serious money? Most laughed it off. Dealers shrugged. The coin world moved on. Until one quiet discovery changed everything. A man cleaning out his late father's belongings found a small envelope labeled "Change from '91." Inside were a few worn quarters. Nothing special at first glance. But one coin felt different. The weight. The sound when it hit the table. He almost tossed it aside. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When that quarter was professionally examined, experts went silent. Under magnification, the details told a story no one expected. This wasn't just wear or damage. This was a rare minting error so precise, so elusive, that it shouldn't have survived quality control. And yet, it did. That single 1991 P quarter opened the floodgates. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auction houses started digging through old records. And suddenly, a year everyone ignored became one of the most talked about Washington quarters ever produced. Here's where the mystery deepens. Not every 1991 P quarter is valuable. Most are worth face value. But a tiny fraction contain flaws so rare they turn pocket change into history. These are not obvious cracks or damage. These are microscopic errors created in the split second when metal meets die under extreme pressure. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some of the most valuable examples show dramatic off-metal strikes, where the quarter was struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Others reveal double-die obverse errors, where Washington's features appear doubled, almost like a ghost image following him. The lettering may look slightly blurred. The date might seem thicker than normal. And the mint mark placement tells a story most people never think to read. But what really sent prices into the stratosphere was condition that a pristine 1991 p quarter with one of these errors, preserved in near-perfect mint state, became the holy grail. One example shocked the market when experts estimated its potential value at over $2.6 million. That number didn't come from hype. It came from rarity, demand, and the brutal truth that almost all others were destroyed or spent. Imagine realizing the coin you flipped into a vending machine in the 90s could have been worth over $1 million today. That realization hit hard for a lot of people. One dealer admitted he had handled thousands of 1991 quarters and never looked twice. Another collector confessed he used them for parking meters. The regret was palpable. But here's the part nobody wants you to forget. These coins were never recalled. They were never announced. They were never pulled from circulation, which means some are still out there. Every 1 to 2 minutes, the story resets itself because the possibility is still alive. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A second example surfaced, this time from a bankroll. Unsearched, untouched. The owner wasn't even a collector, just someone who liked saving change. When the grading results came back, the room went quiet again. Another confirmed error. Another near-perfect strike. Another potential $1 million hiding in plain sight. Yet that's when the frenzy began. Collectors were shocked. Forums exploded. Coin shops saw lines out the door. Everyone suddenly wanted to check their quarters. And yet, most people still don't know what they're looking for. That's the tragedy. Because this isn't about luck. It's about knowing the signs that if you want to identify a potentially life-changing 1991 p Washington quarter, you start with the mint mark. Look just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse. A small P confirms Philadelphia. No P, no miracle. Next, examine the date and lettering. Look for doubling, not damage, not wear. True doubling looks like a shadow, a thickness, a second image slightly offset. Liberty and I in God we trust are key areas. Then check the strike. Is it unusually sharp or strangely misaligned? Off-center strikes, wrong planchets, or unusually strong details are red flags in the best possible way. Weight matters too. A standard quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. Anything significantly off could mean the coin was struck on the wrong metal. That mistake alone can be worth a fortune. Condition is everything. Scratches, cleaning marks, or wear can destroy value. Never clean the coin. Never polish it. That one mistake has cost people millions of dollars. And here's the detail most people miss: the edge. Look closely. A missing or partial reeded edge can indicate a rare mint error. It's subtle, easy to overlook, but it's one of the reasons these coins cross into $1 million territory. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many signs they had ignored over the years. Dealers are rushing because they know something most people don't. These coins don't announce themselves. They hide. They blend in. They wait. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle simply because he paused before throwing it away. And that's the lesson burned into every serious collector's mind. Because the next discovery won't come from a vault. It won't come from a museum. It will come from everyday life. A drawer, a jar, a forgotten